cancel culture. You may have heard this word thrown around, especially if you're an avid user of any social media platform. The term cancel culture has grown in popularity within the years, hence why you may keep hearing it more often when scrolling through X or TikTok or Instagram. However, despite the amount of times you've heard the word, what does it exactly mean? If you are not familiar or have never heard the term before, I would say that there is not a set definition of what cancel culture means. Many people who are familiar with it can define it in different ways due to the perspective that the term can hold on an individual. However, the closest way of defining cancel culture would be from procon.org. The removal of support for individuals, a group of people, an organization, or a company due to an opinion or action on their part deemed objectionable to the parties calling them out. In addition, Merriam-Webster evaluates the phrase notes with quote-unquote demand greater accountability from public figures. The reasons for cancelment of individuals, groups, or organizations are due to problematic actions or statements, such as issues like race, gender, sexuality, and other related topics. Before getting into the specifics of the phrase, we wanted to go back to the origins of cancel culture and how it gained traction. Cancel culture originated from the slang term cancel, aka breaking up with somebody. The earliest example would be from the American disco band Chic, with their 1981 song of Your Love Is Cancelled. Furthermore, the term appears to originate from sexist humor, as in the 1991 film New Jack City, Nino Brown refers to his girlfriend,
"Cancel that bitch. I'll buy it now."
However, despite the term being used in the early 80s and 90s, the term didn't gain attention until 2014 had hit. In an episode of VH1's Love and Hip Hop New York, Cisco Rosado, a record producer, had ended an argument with his girlfriend by saying, "You're canceled."
You canceled.
Canceled?
Canceled.
You got me up. I'm not going nowhere.
I was just watching New Jack City the night before I met with her that day. So I think that's where the whole cancel came from.
The word canceled was often used on social media for a person who was a part of the Black LGBTQ+ community to show disapproval of another person's actions. 2014 had helped the term to gain traction, but not enough to the point where we use the term frequently as much as we do today. It was not until 2016 and 2017 where notable growths were reported of using the phrase cancel culture on the Black Twitter community. The first encounter on social media would be surrounding the controversy of Gabby Douglas in November 2017. Gabby Douglas is an American Olympic gymnast who was canceled after she appeared to blame survivors of sexual assault. She stated, "It is our responsibility to dress modestly and be classy." Shanita Hubbard, an acclaimed writer and journalist instructor at the University of Toronto, had responded with the tweet, "Let's talk cancel culture. Personally, I am willing to give a lot of grace to young Black girls simply because the world doesn't," as the tweet had gained attention with more than 6K likes. From there, cancel culture was starting to gain popularity, specifically from Twitter or X. Google Trends data indicates that there was no search interest in the phrase cancel culture until the second half of 2018 and early 2019. The highest search peaks for the phrase would be around July 2020 and February through March of 2021. From 2017, the usage of the term cancel culture was starting to blow up, but one big question was, how does cancel culture even work? How does a person deem to get canceled? Cancel culture can take several different forms: spreading awareness of the canceled party or individual involved, exerting pressure on organizations to cancel the public appearance, and organizing boycotts. To show specific examples, the biggest movements that had spread from cancel culture would be the #MeToo and #BlackLivesMatter movements.
Yes means yes and no means no.
The #MeToo movement involved spreading awareness towards the issue of sexual harassment and sexual abuse of women in the workplace, as the movement gained recognition from Harvey Weinstein's sexual assault cases in October 2017. The New Yorker had published an interview with 13 women allegedly harassed by Harvey Weinstein, as actress Alyssa Milano had spoken out with the hashtag #MeToo. The hashtag was tweeted over 500,000 times overnight and had exerted high pressure on Weinstein's sentence. In 2022, Weinstein ended up being sentenced to 23 years in jail, with addition to 16 more years in February 2023. The hashtag Black Lives Matter movement had first started due to the acquittal of George Zimmerman in the shooting death of Trayvon Martin back in 2012. However, the movement gained worldwide awareness in 2020 due to the death of George Floyd. On the evening of May 25, 2020, white Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd, a Houston black native and father of 5, by kneeling on his neck for almost 10 minutes. The death was recorded by witnesses on the scene and was initially posted on Facebook. The video had quickly spread across the nation as protesters were chanting, "Black Lives Matter" and "I Can't Breathe," initiating the largest protest movement in US history, as well as nationwide reckoning on the relationship of policing and race. The protests had spread awareness and helped to voice out the role and budgets of American police departments.
If you can make federal laws to protect the bird, which is the bald eagle, you can make federal laws to protect people of color.
As well as the discussion in schools and corporations about how to end racism and create a more inclusive and equal environment. Chauvin, who had 17 other misconduct complaints lodged against him prior to killing Floyd, was arrested on May 29, 2020, and charged with second-degree and third-degree murder, as well as second-degree manslaughter. Chauvin was sentenced to 22.5 years in prison. In September 2023, Percy Hines White was written out of the second season of Netflix's Wednesday, 9 months after he was accused of assaulting a woman. White had played as Xavier Thorpe in the Addams Family spinoff, a student who had the ability to make his art come to life. The accusation had popped up in early January of 2023, as an anonymous Twitter user had shared a since-deleted tweet that had accused the actor of assaulting them at a party. The user had wrote, "He would pursue, have sex with, abuse, and get my friends high, who was 13 or 14 at the time. Last time I knew that they had sex, she was 16 and he was 20. He assaulted me at one of those parties while I was too drunk, and he had cornered and pressured and assaulted multiple of my friends." Twitter users had gotten a hold of this information and quickly spread the accuser's statement like a wildfire, as Wednesday fans were demanding for White's removal on the show and gathering up evidence that he was making his co-star, Jenna Ortega, uncomfortable whenever they were seen together in an outing. In June, White had finally denied the accusations, claiming that it was a campaign of misinformation, and continued to say the rumors are false, and he can't accept the portrayal of himself as someone bigoted or criminally negligent of people's safety. Since then, White has only made the appearance for Premiere's new movie, My Old Ass, at the Sundance Film Festival in January 2024, but no plans have been discussed for his future. As for boycotts, the most recent and effective ongoing boycott that has been going on would have to be against Starbucks and McDonald's. The boycott has been going on since October of last year in support of Palestine, as Starbucks and McDonald's are both huge corporations that support Israel's ongoing military offensive in Gaza, which has killed at least 3,782 Palestinians to date. The companies have distanced themselves from issuing a statement of stopping their support or associating themselves with Israel, which fuels protesters to keep their intent of boycotting. According to NBC News, in Orem, Utah, a couple dozen protesters stood on the street corners outside of McDonald's on November 24, 2023, to call for a ceasefire and oppose U.S. state leaders' support for Israel. A few days earlier, Reuters reported that there were pro-Palestinian protesters who plastered red paint on the walls of an outlet of McDonald's and Starbucks in Melbourne. And even in February of this year, Starbucks CEO Laxman Narasimhan told analysts that the world's largest coffee chain was reporting slower sales in the first month of 2024, causing a hit in its share price. "We saw a negative impact to our business in the Middle East," he said, adding that events in the Middle East also had an impact in the US, driven by misperceptions about our position. The report came a few days later after McDonald's, who also sharply missed analysts' expectations when it reported slower sales across its international license division at the end of December. They similarly attributed the slowdown to a drop in demand in stores in the Middle East and predominantly Muslim countries like Indonesia and Malaysia. However, there has been a debate whether people believe the effectiveness of cancel culture actually holds people accountable or just harms the accuser involved.
I just can't exist on this channel. Hopefully I've taken down anything that would upset someone. And I hope you know that that's just not my intent. That's not what I ever set out to do, to hurt anyone's feelings or to make anyone feel bad.
Some even go far to the point of saying that they believe that cancel culture does not exist. In 2022, Pew Research had held an updated study about Americans and their view of cancel culture in 2020. Since 2020, Americans are now more divided on whether calling out others on social media for posting potentially offensive content is accountable or punishment. 44% of US adults say calling out others on social media is more likely to hold people accountable, while 52% say it is more likely to punish people who didn't deserve it. The study's main responses that it received when defining cancel culture were centered around accountability. As a liberal Democrat female in her 30s stated to Pew Research, cancel culture is a movement to remove celebrity status or esteem from a person, place, or thing based on an offensive behavior or transgression. However, there were responses who described cancel culture as a form of censorship, such as restrictions on free speech or as history being erased. A conservative Republican male in his 50s stated, "Cancel culture is trying to silence someone that does not have the same beliefs as you. Basically, it's taking their First Amendment rights away. It violates affected people's civil rights." 12% characterized cancel culture as mean-spirited attacks used to cause others harm. A conservative Republican in his 50s writes, "Cancel culture is destroying a person's career or reputation based on past events in which that person has participated in or past events that person has made, even if their beliefs or opinions have changed." Earlier, we had talked about specific examples that cancel culture has created and led, but now let's dive into the pros and cons of cancel culture to see both sides. As for pros, like spoken on some of the examples I had previously mentioned, as well as the Pew Research study, cancel culture allows for people to seek accountability where the justice system fails. The #MeToo movement was the best example of this, and even had set off a chain such as the Epstein Island case. As the movement fueled for cultural change as well as pressuring for prosecutors to take action and create public support for sexual assault cases, cancel culture also provides a voice to disenfranchised people and the overall public. In 2020, Asians, Asian Americans, and others had faced xenophobia as well as discrimination towards COVID-19 being declared as a worldwide pandemic. COVID-19 had originated from China, as Asians would be put into the stereotype, no matter what nationality they were, that they are the cause of the virus due to the origin.
I can name Kung Flu.
Then President Trump repeatedly highlighted the origins of the pandemic.
We're against the Chinese virus. It's got all different names. Wuhan.
Xenophobia and hate crimes had arisen through this, as the Stop Asian Hate movement was started and helped all Asians to speak up against the discrimination they had faced during the pandemic, as well as spreading social change of stopping racial injustice towards the community. Cancel culture also brings social change through boycotts. K-pop group Luna was managed under BlackBerry Creative, as there were questions and accusations arising about how the group was being treated overall. Their devoted fan base named Orbits were deeply concerned from the management and treatment, as they decided to initiate a boycott. The boycott was aimed to pressure BlackBerry Creative to address the issues of mistreatment and abuse. Orbits were able to successfully boycott the company through album sales, social media engagement, retail support, and streaming numbers. Furthermore, due to the boycott, the members of the group were able to break free from the shackles of BBC, and to venture out into different companies that would treat them respectfully, as well as to release music and content for their fans. Despite the many significant changes that cancel culture has brought awareness upon, there are also many cons that come with the movement. Cancel culture does not allow for people to grow, as they would rather incite online bullying and violence. A prime example would be from one of Korea's most famous girl groups, Twice's Chaeyoung. In March of 2023, Chaeyoung had posted a photo of herself wearing a shirt of the Sex Pistols bassist Sid Vicious, who in his shirt is wearing a swastika, on her Instagram account. The post was up for about an hour as she had realized her mistake and deleted the image off of her account, as well as issuing a public apology on her Instagram. Hello, this is Chaeyoung from Twice. I sincerely apologize regarding the Instagram post. I didn't correctly recognize the meaning of the tilted swastika in the t-shirt I wore. I deeply apologize for not thoroughly reviewing it, causing concern. I will pay absolute attention in the future to prevent any situation similar from happening again. Sincerely apologize again. Despite the apology, K-pop fans had recklessly ripped Chaeyoung to shreds, as well as going far to making jokes and pairing her to the beliefs and crimes of Nazi soldiers. Many even wanted her to leave Twice as an 8-member girl group as a whole, or referred to the solution of death threats. Furthermore, it has been a year since the incident, and K-pop fans still joke and comment negative statements or threats about her on social media platforms to this day. Therapy Group of DC states that when individuals are called out on their mistakes or views from cancel culture, it leaves little room for learning or growth. In addition, the lack of space for understanding and change can be detrimental to mental health. It denies individuals the chance to learn from their errors, grow from their experiences, and develop a more inclusive and empathetic viewpoint. Situations such as Chaeyoung's bring light towards the toxicity of cancel culture, as the movement advocates for accountability as a whole. But there is no room for growth to the person being canceled, rather relentless attacks that will shred that person's mental health. Cancel culture also raises questions whether it is productive, and how it actually deceives the social change that is happening. #MuteRKelly began trending after the Surviving R. Kelly docuseries premiered in January 2019. The hashtag's purpose was to call out the singer's conviction for sexual crimes and to bring an end to his career. However, the movement did the exact opposite, as the negative attention instead backfired, as the on-demand streams for his music increased from 1.9 million to 4.3 million, which was a 126 increase. The same effect had happened towards Kevin Hart when his past tweets about homophobia resurfaced after he was chosen to host the 2019 Oscars. Though he stepped down as the host and issued an apology, his career wasn't really affected, but instead continued to skyrocket. Obama even criticized the trend in an interview at the Obama Foundation Summit.
You know, that's not activism. That's not bringing about change. You know, if all you're doing is casting stones, you know, you're probably not going to get that far. That's easy to do.
These examples play into a part of where people believe cancel culture does not exist, due to the productivity and social change it promotes. Lastly, cancel culture demonstrates how people systematically exclude anyone who disagrees with their views. Very Well-Mind author wrote, "Instead of creating dialogue to help you understand how your views hurt others, the cancelers shut off all communication, essentially robbing you of the opportunity to learn and grow from your mistakes." They also add, "Some bystanders may be plagued with fear after seeing someone canceled. They feel as if they cannot speak out on their own opinions and bottle up their emotions." It's very hard for cancel victims to recover from cancelers, as it can be seen as an ambush. I personally have been on Twitter or X for a couple of years now, and even people that I have been friends with on the platform can be canceled, as they end up going from a public to a private account due to trying to reduce the amount of harassment they will get from cancelers blowing up their notifications. Even after being canceled, the person ends up going on hiatus or just leaves social media as a whole to break free from that toxicity. To further the research of how well aware people are of cancel culture and their beliefs of the movement, I had interviewed some UWF students on campus to get their voice on the matter, as well as testing them on how well versed they are with canceled figures.
I'm here with
Dylan.
And what's your major, Dylan?
Communications.
Okay, cool. What's your name?
Amanda.
Amanda, nice to meet you.
Me too.
What is your major?
My major is international studies, and I focus in environmental and economic development, and I have a minor in strategic communication for the sciences.
Okay, you go. Oh my god. Wow. All right, so Geeta, are you familiar with cancel culture or the term canceled?
Not as much.
Unfortunately.
Why do you say unfortunately?
Some chronically online stuff.
Oh.
Some chronically online shenanigans.
I understand that completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think it means?
I did look it up a little, but I have heard it before, but I don't think I have focused on it as much. But it's just basically people, mostly like popular people, celebrities who do inappropriate things, so people don't want to follow them as a role model anymore, so they're canceled.
I think cancel culture is an abstract idea that comes with you do something bad and your fans or the general public try to deplatform you in some form or fashion.
I think that was very formative for me. I think anyone who was part of the pre-COVID 2013 up until 2020, there was a big inertia in our society pushing for accountability and justice. And I think cancel culture was helpful under certain circumstances, but I think it also, being wielded by the internet, had some grave consequences to the point of it almost invalidating itself.
So since you're not really like well versed with cancel culture, but there's like these two, I would say, issues that cancel culture kind of holds. It's like whether or not it holds accountability towards that celebrity, or whether or not you think it restricts the freedom of speech of allowing people to comment whatever they want and all of that stuff. Do you think it holds accountability, or do you think it restricts, your freedom of speech?
Kinda. I feel like it could kind of go both ways depending on the situation.
That's how I kind of feel too, if I'm being honest. Okay.
I don't think it's very good at either of those two things. For one, you have individuals like Chris Brown who do heinous stuff, and then the world kind of just forgets about it, and he only gets bigger. And then you have times where it has worked, like with Bill Cosby or with Dan Schneider. And then you have cases where people will get canceled for kind of ridiculous reasons, and it works. And then you have times where people get canceled for ridiculous reasons and it doesn't work. And then you have people who get bigger after getting canceled. It's not very good at doing either. And then once you get removed from one platform, they'll just go to another one.
So I would say that cancel culture is ultimately a metric of performer and fan relationship. I think that whenever an artist develops a community who supports their music or art or film production or writing, truly that artist is only accountable to their fans, right? So even if there are chambers outside of this artist to fan community outside who are trying to criticize the artist or attempting to cancel the artist, that doesn't necessarily have the intended impact because the people who are in relationship with the artist don't care. So unless it's like a crime, which even then, people, like, if the fan base doesn't care, the fan base doesn't care.
All right, so moving on to the fun part. So we got kind of like a cancel culture test, even though I know you're not too familiar, but okay, so I'll just give you some celebrities and I'm gonna give you like a multiple choice. So you have options to choose whether or not, they've been canceled for this stuff. And then I'll ask you whether or not you think it was kind of valid, whether or not they got canceled for it, or if you think it's ridiculous. Okay, so we got Ariana Grande. Are you familiar with her?
Yes.
Okay, So, your first choice is being rude to staff and her fans, believing she's more talented than Mariah Carey, and licking a donut and saying that she hates America.
Being canceled, I would think it would be because she was rude to her staff.
Okay. Correct answer would be that she licked the donut and she said she hates America.
That's why she was canceled?
Yes, that's what she was canceled for. Do you think that was valid, or do you think it was like...
I don't think that's valid. I think maybe she was just being funny. I don't know. I don't think that's very like...
cancelable?
Yeah.
Okay. So we got your favorite that we had mentioned, Doja Cat, way back before. So,
let's get into it,
yeah. So we have, for the first choice, there was her beef with Stranger Things' Noah Schnapp. There's also she had recently said that she was purposefully like branding her music to be mediocre. So like I think her recent albums, I think it was Planet Her and I think Hot Pink, I think it was called that. She was saying that she wanted those like pop sounds to just be like a cash grab.
Oh.
Yeah. And she was basically...
Get the bag and get out, I guess.
Yeah, and then she was basically telling her fans, like, you all fell for it, like, I'm rich now, blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah. And then lastly, there's also her publicly declaring that she hates her fans.
Oh.
Yeah. So, out of those three, which one do you think?
Man, I think it's probably option B, but I don't blame her for getting the bag and getting out, personally.
I mean, I don't blame her too. She's been...
And, you know, there's other artists that hate their fans, like Aubrey Plaza. I love that she hates me, and I love that Doja hates me. It means they're not trying to cater to me at all, and that almost has a layer of authenticity to it. She does not care what I think.
Yeah.
There's no hate mail in the world that will change what she's doing, and I respect that.
Hey. All right, well, her reason of being canceled just recently, even though she has been canceled quite a few times, I will say that. But her most recent cancellation was because she publicly declared that she hates her fans, and a lot of people did not take that very well.
Oh.
They were like, we do everything, like we stream all this music for you and you hate us? Like why don't you love us? Blah 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 blah. So a lot of people did not take that. As well as you did, of course, but yeah. So we first got, for your first celebrity, we got Drake.
Period. Alright. Papi.
All right. So for his choices, which ones do you think he's gotten canceled by? So there is him shading Megan Thee Stallion. I think he did write something about her in the song because of her recent shootout with, are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
With Tory Lanez?
Yeah.
So he did shade her on that, and a lot of people weren't happy. I'll say that. And then there's also him having a ghostwriter for his songs. A lot of people don't like that he's, just using a ghostwriter. He's not authentic, and he calls himself the best rapper in the league. So a lot of people were like, I don't know about that if you're ghostwriting.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I think this is... his last one would be preying on young female celebrities. Would be his last one.
I feel like he's done all three, and I feel like that there's been potential repercussions for all three. So, but I think as far as borderline criminal, preying on younger actresses would be it for me. I think Drake was a co-producer for Euphoria. So I think in that show, and then inside of pop media that is being specifically targeting pop media that specifically targets teenagers, there's a lot of power and there's a lot of influence that performers have. And I think Euphoria as a show, I would say I did enjoy it. I do think that there were, a lot of problematic themes being explored in it. I felt kind of yucky afterwards knowing that Drake had a big creative hand in its production, and then also Drake's relationship with the lead from Stranger Things, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So people were kind of like unhappy with that. And I mean, that's valid because, you know, inside of music, inside of art, inside of like the creative industry, kids are often perceived as being significantly more mature because of how they have to navigate these spaces. And then in turn, that perception and the weight that we put on the children, and then I think in general, like a predatory culture that is so ingrained in Hollywood. Yeah, I mean, you know, what do we mean by praying? You know, I'm not sure what Homie did, but yeah, like it's just weird and gross. So.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was the preying on young female celebrities. All right. Okay, so next person that we have would be, are you familiar with Elon Musk?
Yes.
Okay. So for his choices, we have his takeover of Twitter/X, like the headquarters.
Yeah.
And then there's also where he reinstated former President Donald Trump's Twitter and Kanye West as well. And then the other weird one I would say is naming his child, I don't know how you say it. It's like XAEA12 Musk. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's something like that. But out of all of those three, which one would you think he got canceled on?
Okay, now that we talked about Ariana Grande's, I feel like it would be the name.
You feel like it'd be the name? Okay, I mean, the correct answer would be, I would say his takeover of Twitter and X headquarters, whatever you call it. But yeah, it actually wasn't him naming his child, ridiculously enough. But I would say it's because of the way he's running Twitter headquarters. A lot of people are like, oh, things are getting like restricted and things aren't as fun as it used to be like on the Twitter platform. Next celebrity is Ellen DeGeneres. So we got scammed her audience out of money giveaways.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And then there's also cussing out one of her celebrity guests.
Can I ask which guest it was?
No, you cannot.
Okay.
And then lastly, creating a toxic/manipulating workplace.
I heard of this one. People hated working on that show from what I heard online, according to some. Don't at me. I think it's that one.
All right, yes.
I just remember the cringy COVID, like, if we all come together, like John Lennon cover.
Yeah.
I thought it would have been because of that.
I mean, who knows? But yes, she did get canceled for creating a toxic and manipulating workplace. I did fib. She did not cuss one of her celebrity guests out. Although I wouldn't put it past her if she has a toxic, manipulating kind of place, but who knows? I don't know about the money giveaways either, so she could have done it, but who knows?
That one's kind of a mixed bag, you know?
Yeah, exactly. We also got, are you familiar with, Ticketmaster?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you used it before?
Yeah, I have. For all of the pre-COVID shows.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day yeah.
All right. So for my multiple choice, I got allowing scalpers to overprice tickets. And then we also have overpriced fees at the checkout. And then we have last one, the queue system and pre-sale codes not working. So tickets that are supposedly supposed to be in queue aren't actually distributed to the fans. So out of those three, which one do you think is cancelable?
They're all three. Okay, so like I said, I focus on economic development. So I think the existence of a monopoly is entirely cancelable, and I think that Ticketmaster has such a tremendous influence in the show space, market space, and whenever we deprive people of being able to make democratic decisions with their dollars, they should be canceled. So, that's where we have these systematic market failures that you laid out. So I think they should be canceled for all three, but I mean, especially like the third one, you're waiting in line, you're excited to go to a show, and then your ticket isn't working. You know, you paid money, you've been taken advantage of, and then at that cash out, the person who is taking your information doesn't know about the technical, like, issues with Ticketmaster, so people probably didn't get to see their artist. So I think that's most personal, like that would be the most sucky part, but I mean, all three of those are just definitely cancelable.
Oh yeah. I mean, if I were to say it, I would say all three of them, but the most recent one I would say for why it got canceled was the last one that I had mentioned about the queue system and like pre-sales. Especially, it blew a big outrage with Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Like her fans, you know, a lot of people were waiting on like tickets to actually see her, and then a lot of people were outraged because Ticketmaster didn't end up working. And then they also did like a legal system with it to the point where people were like, oh, Ticketmaster needs to fix this, and then I think like lawsuits were held and all of that stuff. So I think also Ticketmaster since then has kind of like improved upon their ways, I would say a little bit, quote unquote. But other than that, they haven't fixed like the other two, if I'm being honest. But yeah. Well, thank you so much. For participating.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
Well, thank you so much for participating. I loved having you. Thank you so much. Overall, cancel culture is a movement that cancels and spreads heightened awareness towards individuals, a group of people, an organization, or a company due to an opinion or action that is disapproving or offensive. Though there is no malicious intent from cancel culture, its purpose is to hold people accountable for their problematic behavior or statements and to spread social change. Cancel culture always seems to call out people for their actions and can sometimes initiate social change for the better, but can face instances where growth is purely restricted from the person being canceled and allows for bullying and the restriction of speech to be formed. There can even be times where cancel culture's effectiveness is not as effective as we think it is, as it can backfire and help the person who is being canceled to grow further in their career. Despite the many definitions of cancel culture, there is no doubt that the movement has changed our generation and brought many things for us to be aware about. However, holding accountability does not just mean calling out the person and throwing rocks at them. It means that we must make room for that person to grow and learn from their mistakes. Cancel culture shuts out every opportunity for that person to understand why their actions offended or hurt the people that it did. Thus, why it has such a negative and toxic connotation when bringing it up into conversation. Former President Donald Trump has even gone to the great lengths of describing cancel culture as a political weapon, and that it is completely alien to our culture and our values, and it has no place in the United States. We as humans should call out a person if they did something wrong or offended someone greatly, but we need to keep in mind that we are all human and are bound to make mistakes. We can't ever grow to be better people if we're never given that opportunity. Let me know what your thoughts of cancel culture are. Do you believe it holds accountability, restricts freedom, or the phenomenon just isn't real? What are ways we can improve the movement?